Hey everybody, welcome back. So today's a great episode, I think, in my opinion. I issued, for once, a challenge of my own to some people. I issued a dollar store challenge for camping scatter terrain for your party, for NPCs, or for anything. But I had some rules on this one that I set forward. And the rules were pretty simple. 1, 90% of what you had to get must be from the dollar store. I excluded paints, your brushes, and of course, like flocking. I like to give everybody a hobby store item, and this one I asked my wife, what should I do? And she said flocking. I thought that was a great idea. So this challenge was, it had to be made from dollar store stuff. You could use nature, because nature is free. You could use 3D printed things if they costed under $1 to buy the file, or you got them for free. In this video, you're going to see me using a couple of things I got from Loot Studio. I got that for free because I just signed up for their mailing letter, and they gave me a bundle for free, which included some trees you're going to see me use that I'd printed out before. So I issued this challenge to a good friend on TikTok there, Always Eating Potatoes, and of course here on YouTube, The Laughing Jester. We don't know what they've gotten done yet. We haven't seen it yet, and if you're seeing this video in the future, go find them on TikTok or here on YouTube and see what they did with this challenge. But for you guys, you're here to see what I did. So let's get started. Like I said, the challenges must be from the dollar store. You can use stuff from outside, you can use your paints, and you can use flocking. Other than that, you can't use anything else. 3D printed, of course, is allowed if it was $1 or under, or you can get it for free. By free, I had a very specific term. What I meant was, it can't be like I paid a $30 subscription, this is free. No, it has to be anyone can go get it without spending a single dime if it's free. Or they can buy it for $1 or under through an Etsy store or something like that. So, let's get to it. Let me show you guys what I did. And at the end of the video, of course, if you want to skip right to the end, the last 30 seconds of the crafting time before my outro video, we'll have the terrain set up and what it looks like. In fact, the setup was actually done by my wife. Normally I do that scene and I set it up and I do all the camera work. This one, she set it all up and I came in surprised to see what she did. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it too. Let's get on it. So I started this project off with some bamboo sticks. Obviously I got these at the dollar store. Like I said, everything from this build is either from the dollar store or something I had from the outside universe. Minus like my paints and stuff. But anyway, I wanted to make an A-frame tent. So as you can see, I started kind of doing a little like whittling there to give myself a little groove to put the bamboo skewers into. I didn't want them just placed up against each other. I kind of wanted them in a recess that they'd set in. And I just took a little bit of super glue to do that here. I know some of you are going to say, man, super glue and wood are not the best combo, but honestly, it works fast. And guess what? I got the glue from the dollar store, as per the challenge. So I'm only setting them about 2 inches apart there, as you can see. And then I'm just cutting some cloth here because I'm going to make that like tarp setup. I use some tacky glue along the edges here to help stick it to it before I do the PVA glue trick that I've shown you in past videos. While that's drying, I grab an index card that I've got sitting on the side, and I'm going to cut a couple into rectangles, about 2.5 inches long at the most, probably about 1 inch wide. I'll take some tissue paper, I'm going to just fold it up into a rectangle, and then stick it onto this little index card, because once we put watered down PVA glue on it, it's going to look like a bedroll with like a blanket on top of it. If you really want to add to it, take another one and just fold it up into a small little square to look like a little pillow. And then same trick, glue it on and PVA glue on top of it to help harden it up over time. And make sure to put a few wrinkles in it. You don't want that smooth. Blankets never look smooth. Alright, so once you've had time for the tacky glue to dry onto the bamboo sticks like I am, cut off the excess. If you want to, you could fold it over and make one end closed off, but I wanted that open-ended A-frame tent look here for this. And then just add PVA glue. To be honest, I should have added some paint to the PVA glue, but because I didn't, I do the next trick here that we all love. I use some black Mod Podge. You know, just regular Mod Podge with some black paint added in. You can always go watch Jeremy over at Black Magic Craft on how to make this. He's pretty much the dude most famous for doing this. Let's be honest, this is kind of like his big thing. I'm sure others did it, but he's like the guy that pretty much made this famous. So anyway, as I add this to us, I'm hoping it'll like kind of add a little bit more strength to it, because you can see it had a little bit of give. And it did. Then I take a suede or a tan, whichever one you want, paint, and I'm putting it over top of it because I want it to look like a tarp. I want it to look like a tarp or a canvas that your players or one of the characters has on them, that they could just like go out and grab a couple of sticks, whittle it up, and make a quick A-frame tent for the night, for their long rest. And honestly, I think it looks pretty good. I do that also with the pillows here, and then I'll come over this again with an olive green, because for some reason I always think of a wool blanket when I think of olive green. And if you've ever been camping, a wool blanket is so nice to have. It keeps you so warm at night. And they could get wet and keep you warm. That's what's great about wool. So as you can see, once I've got that down, I put an off-color white next to my already suede color there for the pillows to just indicate a nice bedroll going down. And maybe the wool blanket has a little fur lining. It's up to you. So once these guys are dry, hit them with a quick dry brush. That'll, of course, accentuate those ripples. Same thing with the tent. Just hit it with a bright white. Instead of like an off-white, normally I use like an antique white. I'm using a bright white here. So most camping trips aren't complete without a campfire. So that being said, I'm going to start ripping apart an old tea light and figuring out how to use it. Now this guy wasn't a flat tea light like I wanted, but he would work. He sits up a little higher than I wanted to, but I'm like, hey, I can make this work. So I start figuring out how to make it work. One of my first things I do here is I cover the base with a black Mod Podge, and I find like a popsicle stick that I can use to cover the switch so it doesn't pop out of place. Obviously, campfires need ashes, so using the old trick for making dirt and whatnot, which is just some super glue and baking soda, I get to work on that. As you can see, it's a little weird looking at the moment, but it'll start to look a little bit more like a bonfire, I promise. So we're going to add the black Mod Podge to this, obviously, to help seal it one, but also to give us a dark base to work with. Once it's dry, I start putting on some of the gray and white dry brushing. Again, I'm trying to make this look like ash, like a pit of ash, or the wood's been burning in here. And of course, I've got these amazing acrylic washes that I have that I'm going to put all over this thing as I go. They're red and they're yellow, and when they mix in certain spots, it'll make a great orange. But as you can see, I've got the light here covered with a little bit of sticky tack at the moment, before I start to add on the flames of the glue gun. I'm trying right now just to take some pieces over top of the little popsicle stick I use to help keep the switch that operates the LED light there from popping out. And then from there, I'm just going to start adding more and more hot glue, layering it up over top of everything while adding on just little bamboo skewers that I'd cut into parts and then cut in half. Now, you're going to notice my camera on the campfire build here. It's going to tilt a few times, and I got so into this, I did not pay attention to my camera tilting, and I forgot to tighten down a little nut there. So a couple of times here, my camera will shift, but don't worry about that. As you can see, I'm just layering this stuff up, like I said, and then I'm going to start layering it with paint. In fact, just going to leave this for you guys to watch and enjoy. And then we'll pick it up on the next segment explaining what's going on. Said I really enjoyed this campfire bonfire build, and I really hope that you guys can find these kind of candles at your dollar store so you can repeat this if you really liked it, 'cause I personally love this. I thought it was amazing. So while things were drying, I ran out into the yard and I grabbed some pebbles out of the yard, and I was like, hey, these will work great. And I started super gluing them to the edge there, because there's that little plastic ring edge still that shows after you do this with the tea light. And I thought about this while I was doing it. It's like, should I wash the stones? And ultimately I decided against doing anything besides just gluing the stones there, because I think the stones on their own look like natural stone, if you get my drift. So, as that's going down, I also started getting ready a watered down PVA mix, because I need to seal this. You don't want the colors from those acrylic washes coming off on your hand when you go to grab this for the party, or for whatever little setup you're doing. You know, you want it to look good, and you don't want the inks to rub off on your hand. Now I got to a point where I was thinking to myself, every fire needs a wood pile, right? Somebody's got to have processed some wood and got it ready for burning. So I just started crafting a small little foam area there and getting it covered in the black Mod Podge and ready to make a wood pile with it. And to get a wood pile, you need some wood. So I started taking some of those extra little bits of wood that I made for the fire and just cutting them down to smaller sizes. Now you might be wondering what I'm doing here, and I'm going to tell you, I'm getting the base ready for a tarp. Now you might go, what? Now when I go camping, I actually have, I bring a tarp with me when I go camping, and I'll take a few sticks and set it up so that it's a spare little area for me to go cooking or something in, somewhere to relax and sit when it's raining. Or maybe one of the other players, this is a great way for them to say, hey, they just had a tarp and they set up a little tent area for themselves. So I built the wood pile. That was pretty simple, just keeping the rounded edges toward the top because that looks like a real wood pile. Once that was done, I started making the posts for my tarp little setup here. They're about 2 inches and 1.5 inches, and then I cut 2 cross beams at the top at about 3 inches. I poked a hole. I used the actual bamboo skewers to just kind of poke a little hole there for myself to set them in, and then just glued the ends and flipped them around. Now an interesting little trick I'm going to do here is I have used coffee grounds. Just, whatever you like to drink, used coffee grounds work the best compared to regular ones. And then I'm going to go over that foam that you see that I'm setting up for the tarp here, and I'm going to sprinkle it all over with some watered down PVA glue on the bottom so that the sticks there and it looks like dirt. As you can see, I took watered down paint as always when it comes to wood, and I'm just covering the top edges of the processed wood pile there and these posts to give them more of a natural wood look. Because again, pop culture, we see wood, we think brown. I didn't want to go too heavy with the brown, I just wanted enough to show and the bamboo wood to soak it up and show the natural grain in the bamboo. Of course, you don't really get to see that translated well on camera. Now, as I said, this is the coffee ground part where you just sprinkle the coffee grounds everywhere and it looks like dirt. Once it dries, you can go back over that with a watered down PVA mix and take some flocking to create grass, and wherever the flocking shows through, you'll see that underneath of dirt and it looks really good, trust me. So if you've ever gone tarp camping before, you'll know that you do need string to hold up your tarp or to hold up the poles and stuff. So that's what I start here. And then once it dries up and gets ready, I start the work on taking a piece of old napkin I had there that I'd been using for, just wiping off my brushes. And I'm like, we're going to put you to use instead of throwing you away. And we're going to make it into the tarp. I take some PVA glue and I mix it up with a little bit of tan paint to give this kind of that old school tarp feel. And I just start brushing it everywhere once it's dried onto the bamboo skewers there just fine. While I was doing this, I started to have this thought that I needed some scatter terrain that went with the camping as well, like trees or some kind of giant mushroom or something, which luckily I had old trees from the dollar store I'd bought around Christmas time and wooden mushrooms I'd also bought from the dollar store. So once this was all said and done and I'd had it dry brushed, I decided to start making tree scatter terrain and a giant frickin' mushroom to go with it. So here are the trees from the dollar store. That was one of those craft house tree thingies. I went by a little quicker than I expected. But I just soaked the trees in some soapy water and took a stiff paintbrush. In this case, a toothbrush would work. Whatever is a very stiff brush to scrape off the glitter and the fake snow that they've got onto it. And then I let them dry And that also helps. Soaking it also helps get the wood off, by the way, because there's these little wood discs on it. So, as I said, I had some of these wooden mushrooms that I bought at the dollar store. I decided I'm just going to paint it white with an orange cap and some black spots on it, because it'll look cool. And obviously these guys can't stand on their own, so I started cutting some foam up just for the base of it. Because, hey, they got to stand on something, right? And I think that'll look great. When I started to cut the foam too, I started to think about like what I was going to do with it and what was going to look where. And as I did that, I was like, shit, I've got mangrove trees that I got for free from Loot Studio. I didn't have to buy anything or do anything, so I just printed them out, painted them with a mixture of golden brown and dark chocolate brown, and then did a dry wash, a black wash dip with them. See, tongue-tied myself there. This spot here, I'm taking extremely watered down PVA glue and putting it all over that so I can take dark green flocking and do my best to just cover those trees with it to get them looking more like pine trees. For the mangrove trees here, I've actually got flocking I made before that was just like the stuffing from furniture that I ripped out, tore into little pieces, and soaked in green paint. And it worked great. You can do that with anything. I'm going to dip the base of the mangrove trees into some glue and then just sprinkle as much of that old coffee grounds on it to give it like dirt that they're growing up out of. Now, as you can see here, just like I said before, cutting foam bases and foam pieces to put the trees in the mushroom on. This is any shape you really want it to look like. So if you're like me, you just cut them out randomly. Now I started to prep the base here that I was going to use for the mushroom. And I had this idea. I had a garland from the dollar store of old skeletons. So I decided I'd hack him up and make him part of the terrain. And it got to me. The story started appearing in my head that maybe the party is camping at a spot where another adventuring party had slain a giant. And this little piece of scatter terrain here, this little like half skeleton rib cage and half skull next to this mushroom, are the only real remnants of that battle that occurred long ago. So what was probably a big boss fight for one group is now just a small area for this group to rest, with that little piece being a little remnant of that battle. So, as you can see here, I'm just getting stuff set up for my trees, and I'm setting down, getting my flocking down. And in this part, I'm using two different types of flocking. My grass flocking, and I've got little leaves flocking that I've got. And the leaves there, of course, because in the forest, you're not walking on just dirt and grass. There's old leaves and other things there. So I start setting it all up, and I just start building as much terrain with flocking and leaves and even some pebbles from the yard. And honestly, I think these things looked great when they came out all said and finished. In fact, I think I'm going to stop yakking here for a little bit and just let you guys take a moment here to see everything that's getting done. And I really do hope that this inspires all of you and any of you watching this. I hope you take something great away from this that helps you out with any crafting projects you're doing.
Toast the dawn under clearing sky to
cool night air feels great after being in the hot, humid dungeon. The fire crackles and burns, and someone is digging through their pack nearby to see what rations they have to cook up a little bit of a meal. The sweet sounds of nearby animals getting ready to go to sleep encourages you, the other party members, to maybe yourselves take a long rest. There we are, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope this gave you guys some ideas. To be fair, this was probably my favorite piece, was just this guy. It just popped in my head, like I said during the video. I just popped in my head that little story of a giant fight, and then this current party's just camped there, and I loved it. And it got a good use out of that dollar store stuff. So I hope this inspired you guys. If it inspired you, leave a comment down below. Let me know what's going on. Remember, please, if you like this, give me a like, a share, a subscribe. We've got a Patreon that you guys can go join up for. $1 a month. You help me keep crafting stuff if you join up. If not, that's cool, but I'd love to see you there. So, get out there, guys. Get crafting. Make something awesome.